People are questioning the value of democracy because democracy is on the decline. That is empirically true. If Europe doesn't stand up and defend democracy, exactly nobody else will do it. We often call the United States a democracy. It's a democracy second. It's a capitalist country first. And as long as democracy benefits our capitalism, we will be democratic. But when democracy threatens our capitalism, we start to abandon certain pillars of democracy in order to maintain our American primacy.
Like there is an attack to Venezuela.
Like Venezuela. The United States going into Venezuela was illegal in every sense of the word until the United States labeled Maduro a narco-terrorist, a term that's not even a real term. And until the state of New York had an indictment against Maduro. We had to build this lily pad sequence of legal activities, only legal to the United States, that would allow us to capture and kidnap a foreign leader.
Countries have hard power and soft power. Your hard power is your military might, it is your economic might. Then there's soft power, which is influence, diplomacy. The issue you're having, and a lot of countries have, is everyone's gone so much into soft power that they've forgotten their hard power. Nobody does diplomacy if they see you as weaker or less than. You can't have diplomacy unless they either respect you or maybe, and people may not like this, fear you. That's what brings diplomacy.
China, Russia, Iran, the United States. As these countries spy, they know they have to be in Europe because Europe is what's known as a permissive environment. Permissive means that your security awareness is very low.
He was making fun of me, guys, that to get inside this building, it was so easy.
How many of you are carrying a paper badge right now? That's insane.
By the way, I have problems with this. Like, a lot of people send me death threats. A lot of people come to my house in Cyprus and they write graffiti against me.
Yes, there's people listening to what you say, and a lot of people in the world are not mentally sound. A lot of factors come in. Youth, anybody under the age of 25, your brain isn't fully developed. Your brain fully develops at the age of 25 and after. How old are you?
I'm just developed, 25. 25. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Andrew, Evy, thank you for traveling to the European Parliament for this. And I will let you introduce yourselves first for 1-2 minutes each.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Bustamante. I am a former CIA intelligence officer. If you have seen me online, you probably saw me with different hair. But I'm very excited that my first public appearance is with you all, period, and that my first public appearance with shorter hair is with you guys. And I'm very excited to be here. You'll hear more about it in a minute, but I am very heavily interested and invested in the future of Europe, as are you, hopefully. And we will be talking a lot about that today. That's it for me.
Hi, everybody. I'm Evy Poumpouras. I'm former U.S. Secret Service Special Agent, Polygraph Examiner, Interrogator. I'm also NBC's law enforcement analyst.
So many complicated words.
I know. It's fancy talk. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here with these two gentlemen here, and we're here to give you as much value as we can and support you in the endeavors that you do, and look forward to it, and also look forward to hearing your questions later on. Thank you for having me.
So how this will go on, we'll give each one like 5 to 10 minutes to say whatever they want. First, Andrew, and then Evy, and then I will do a mini podcast session to them, and then we'll take questions from you guys. So this is what will happen. Stage is yours.
No. I'm standing up. I have a microphone. I have a backup microphone, and wherever the hell Jesus is, has a job to do, so keep up with me. We have another camera over here. I don't do well behind a desk, I apologize. So what I want to start off because I want to talk about some hard truths.
Can everyone hear him, by the way?
Yes. And I don't speak any of your languages except English. So hopefully that's okay with you. I want to talk about some hard truths because we are in a time in history that is a hard truth time in history. There are too many people who don't want to have fact-based conversations, measurable information exchanges that have meaningful impact to the future of the world. Too many people are trying to avoid those conversations or put their head under a rug or hope that it goes away, and it's not going to work. I had an interview this morning at 10 a.m. I had another interview at 11 a.m. I have a conversation with you all. I've got more calls tonight. because the world has more questions than it has answers. And it's looking to people like you, not only here in Europe, not only in the countries that you're from, but countries all over the world are looking to leaders of other countries to try to answer some of these questions. And one of the biggest questions happening, whether you want to admit it or not, is that people are questioning the value of democracy. They are questioning the quote that you have in front of the front entrance of this building. Because democracy is on the decline. That is empirically true, mathematically true. Democracy is on the decline. Even in the European Union, you have far-right governments that want to question the value of Europe. Some of you might represent some of the very same governments that are asking that question right now. Inside the United States, we're seeing more decline of democratic institutions, more decline in faith in democracy. People are asking the question whether or not the United States even has value acting like a democracy, because the biggest, most globally powerful competitors to the United States right now are authoritarian leadership regimes. Xi Jinping loses no sleep thinking about democracy. Putin does not get anxiety thinking about democracy. The Ayatollah in Iran, the leader of North Korea, these are not countries that worry about democracy. And you dedicate yourself every day to executing democratic process. I tell you as an American, I tell you as a peer, I tell you as what I hope will be a future European myself, if Europe doesn't stand up and defend democracy, exactly nobody else will do it. Nobody else will do it. It's not going to come from Thailand. It's not going to come from the Middle East. It's not going to come from some constitutional monarchy that really just wants to be a monarchy again. It's not going to come from the United States. Nothing except maple syrup comes from Canada. So you literally are on the front line of defining the future of democracy. That's not me trying to be dramatic. That is the God's only truth right now. There is nobody else doing it. Everybody else is questioning it. Everybody else is shortcutting it. So you, in your careers, and the people you represent, and the populations that look up to you, are waiting to see what you are going to do. And since we're on the topic of fact, let me also say that Europe's track record of doing pretty much anything is very, very poor. What you have done and what the people before you have done and what your leadership has done since the end of World War II is follow somebody else. And that isn't going to work anymore. Because the country that you've always followed is in decline also. The United States is in decline financially. It's in decline with international influence. It's in decline with unity within the country itself. So you can't follow the United States anymore. The United States has demonstrated their lack of commitment to Europe time and time again. What do you think will happen in the near and long-term future? They're going to suddenly turn a corner and be incredibly invested in Europe? No. They're going to continue the trend. The United States put in motion a strategy at the end of World War II to create a global economy that was dependent on the United States. The only country coming out of World War II that had no war damage. That was the strategy. That strategy worked so effectively that when the United States entered the global war on terror in 2001, China replicated our World War II strategy. They spent 20 years indebting other countries to Chinese goods, Chinese technology, Chinese infrastructure. It wasn't until COVID in 2019 that the whole fucking world woke up and realized, wow, China kind of sits at the center of everything now. If you look back on your own history, you probably didn't realize it either. You just woke up one day and you were like, wait a second. All the minerals are refined in China. All logistical hubs go through China. China's actually creating the telecommunication that sits outside of our military bases. That wasn't just you that was surprised. That was world leaders who were surprised. So China simulated, copied America's strategy coming out of World War II, and that is why we have a world where the United States and China are in direct competition economically and technologically. Because had we not woken up to that, we would have never seen it. So we are entering a phase of the world where the world will be multipolar, multiple powerful economies, multiple powerful alliances. And if Europe continues on the path it's been on for the last 70 years, it's going to pick one of the two sides instead of stand up on its own. And if you actually believe in democracy, if you actually believe that democracy is good for mankind, neither of the two sides that you're going to choose between are going to work. You will have to stand up on your own. You will have to be one of the poles in this multipolar world. And I am here because I believe some of you will do that. But most of you will remain too quiet or cowardly to try. So I'm really here to talk to the few of you that will make a difference and entertain the other 80%. Thank you.
You know, I was going to start somewhere else, Andy. But I do want to maybe echo a little bit, somewhat of what Andy said. It is true. I served as a U.S. Secret Service agent, so some of you may not know what that is, but I was around politicians my whole life. I protected politicians. That was one of the missions of the U.S. Secret Service. So I've been around politics throughout the majority of my life. And then there are doers and there are talkers. And you know who they are. And so some of you will be the talkers and some of you will be the doers. And I'll tell you what stems behind it. It's also, why are you here? Like, why are you doing this, especially at my MEPs? Why are you here? In the U.S. Secret Service, we had applicants. If you want to be a special agent, you had to take a polygraph and pass it. Polygraph is what they call the lie detector tests. Mainly because when you look at the data, about 75% of people lie or leave things out when they're applying for jobs. And when you're going for a position like U.S. Secret Service, you're in the White House, you have a lot of power and exposure, you want to make sure the person you hire has integrity and is honest. But before I would actually start the polygraph itself, I'd ask every applicant, I would ask them, why do you want to be a special agent with the U.S. Secret Service? And I'd get two typical answers. One answer I would get is, I want to challenge myself. This seems great. It'd be great for my career. I want to see what I can do. That's one. The other answer I would get is, I want to serve something greater than myself. I want to have a meaningful career. I want to serve people. I want to serve my country. Now you guess who made it through the process successfully and who actually made it through training. The guy who was like, I'm here for me, because they were there for themselves, not so well. The person who made it understood that it wasn't about them. They were there to serve. They were there to do something greater than themselves. So I'm going to flip it back to you. Why are you here? Is it because you want to launch a political career? You're looking out for what you're going to do? Is the conversation, the inner dialogue? And there's nothing wrong with that, but you want to be careful because you are in a position to serve. Right now in this moment, the three of us here to serve you the next 2 hours. I'm here to serve you, whatever questions we can answer, whatever we can do for you. I don't matter, they don't matter, you matter. So when you do these positions and what you're doing, who matters? Do you matter or the people you serve matter? Because you're in the business of service. And that's something to take in, because when you understand that, then every decision you make thereafter is about what? Serving others, and then doing the right thing. And we all know doing the right thing and the hard thing isn't always the popular thing. So you want to think through those aspects of it. The other thing is, and I was going to originally talk about protection and intelligence, but kind of coming off of this, there's two important virtues. There was research study done on the most important virtues of a leader, because you're a leader. And by the way, you don't have to be a boss to be a leader. You don't have to have people beneath you. Being a leader is your essence, it's your ethos. It's when people see you, even your peers, and they say, I'm gonna follow that person, I'm gonna listen to that person. When people see you as a leader, you don't have to work as hard because they organically see you as that. There was a research study done, and they looked at all the virtues of the most successful leaders in the world. And they were trying to figure out what makes somebody a true and virtuous leader and a successful leader. And there were two qualities that they found, and it was warmth and it was competence. So I'll start with competence. When I say competence, what do I mean by competence? Competence means I know what I'm doing. I have a skill set. I have a capability and ability that I bring. It means I have knowledge. Now, it doesn't mean I have to know everything. You don't need to know everything. Sometimes people think I have to have all the answers. Competent people, and by the way, resilient people, don't need to have all the answers. I don't need to have all the answers. It's the information that I receive in that moment where I make the best decision I can with what I have. And then I decide, and then I own that decision, right or wrong. But people are so hooked up on what's the right decision that they make no decision. And then they worry about, well, how do I look? And when you do that, who are you worried about? Me, not the greater cause. Competence is also consistency, is what I say, do I follow through with what I say? You will get people that say this, and you will get people that do this. This is a disharmony. And what you tell the world and people and your peers is, don't listen to what I say, because I'm going to give you all the talk I want, but I'm going to do this. You want these things too to be in alignment. That people know that when you open your mouth, you're going to follow through with what you say. And there's a term, one of the best interrogators I worked with, his name was Lee Swafford. He said, you know what? He said, our words are like money. When we talk, we're dropping money. If I talk a lot, I drop dollar bills. Here's a dollar, here's a dollar, here's a dollar. Everybody, I love to talk, dollar bills. But when I speak because I have something truly of value to say, well, now I'm dropping hundreds. And then you know that when I open my mouth, I'm dropping hundreds. I'm adding value. A lot of times people think I need to go to a meeting or to an event like this, I have to speak. Half the meetings I go to today, I say nothing. Because sometimes I have nothing of value to say. But the concept is I'm here, people need to know I'm here, and then who are you make it about? Again, you. That's the concept of service. Consistency, showing up, and people also knowing that you're reliable. In the US government, we had a saying, if you're on time, you're late. If somebody says, I'm gonna be there at 9, they're there at 8:50. You wanna show people value and respect, you show them you value and you respect their time. It's the little things you do that compound. You know how compound interest works? That's it. That's all it is. There's no magic. There's no secret to this. It's all the little things you do that compound over time where people see you and they say, that person, that's a leader. The other thing is warmth. Now, when I say warmth, I'm not talking about being overly nice, overly kind, overly polite, making people your friends. Let me ask you a question. What happens when you're overly nice, overly polite, and overly kind? What happens to you? What do people do to you? They do what? They underestimate you. They take advantage of you. They roll you. And then you're scratching your head and going, I don't understand. I was so nice. I was so kind. I did this. I did that. Why did they do this? Because you're bringing the wrong version of yourself. The version you bring is warmth. It means I'm open, I'm welcoming, I'm here, talk to me. What can I do for you? How can I help you? I have empathy. Empathy is not I'm so sorry. Empathy is not seeing things from your vantage point, because a lot of times what we do is we project on other people what we think. We think, oh, they see the world the way we do, and it is not true. Empathy is my ability to try and understand what you see. I had to use empathy all the time when I did interviews and interrogations. In the US Secret Service, there was only about 30 of us. We were a small elite group, and they would come to us to get confessions from maybe violent crimes, complex frauds. I would also help local police departments with their very difficult cases. I also did terrorists or terrorist sympathizers. So when I sat in the room, that interview was not about me. It was, who do I have in front of me? And how do I speak to this person in a way so that I can connect and get the information that I need? You create a connection. A lot of times leaders falsely think, I'm gonna make you come to me. That's rigidity. Rigid people, by the way, are the most dangerous people. Because what they tell you is it's my way and that's it. Try negotiating with that. And who wants to work with that? Nobody. You meet people where they are. You bend, you flow, you become water, because sometimes, and a lot of people think, well, I need to stand here because this person's rock, and then I'm gonna be rock, and then you're doing this all day long. And you are doing nothing. There's no diplomacy, there's no democracy, there's no negotiating. And then leaders understand that their ego goes to the side, and it's what's my mission, what's my goal? Is my goal to pass this specific policy in something? Then everything I do is for the success of that, not for myself. So for example, if I interviewed somebody who was a terrorist, I specifically went in there because I needed information. I need to know, and usually it was, I need to know where the next attack is coming from. And often what they would do is they would give us false information. They come in and be like, hey, I have information, there's an attack coming, it's gonna be here, it's coming in from there. Often it was a lie, so that we could do what? Take all our resources, put them here, because the attack was really coming from all the way over here. And so I would have to go in to verify that information. And in hearing that, I would hear a lot of things, obviously anti-American, specific to ideology. Now, for the record, I'm a survivor of terrorism. 9/11 was where, in the World Trade Center was where my office was when I was in the US Secret Service. So I was there from the first plane hitting to the collapse of the second tower, for the whole thing. I watched people die all day long. But you know what? Never in any of those interviews when I talk to terrorists did I say, hey, you know what you did? Do you know what you did to my people? Do you know how many people died? I lost a colleague, I lost friends because of you. No, because who did I make that interview about? Me. What was my goal? My goal was I need information to figure out where the next attack is coming from. You must be mission focused, and if you are not careful, you will get derailed. People will come along, they'll slight you, they'll offend you, they may not shake your hand, they may skip you, whatever the case may be. If that happens to you, you cannot think straight. You cannot make changes in the world. You can't think like a diplomat. You know, one of the best quotes I heard, and this was actually told to me by one of my bosses when I was on the president's detail, because we actually worked with a lot of countries. I've probably protected half the country's leaders in this room, because when a foreign leader goes to the United States, we give them protection. We don't want a head of state getting assassinated on US soil. And then vice versa, when the president would go overseas, I'd work with governments. But I would have to liaison all day long with politicians, with staff members, and I would have to get them to comply with what I wanted, because sometimes what I wanted didn't look good on television or on camera, what the public officials wanted. And what I learned was you can't make people do something. Technically you can, but when you do, it blows up in your face. Because people remember, I did this, I didn't want to do this, I did this because you made me do it, and now they do what? They harbor ill will against you and resentment. People remember. But when you get people to comply, then it's different. Then they get to choose. It's actually something of influence. It's an influence strategy where it's, I give you autonomy. I let you choose. I can give you the choices I want, but I'm giving you somewhat control. But diplomacy...
This is what I do with my fiancé as well.
Smart man. But the quote I remember my supervisor told me once, because I would come across rigid people. He said, you know what, Evy? He said, and this wasn't his quote. He said, a diplomat is someone who can tell you to go to hell and make you look forward to the trip. You have to think about, what am I trying to do here? I don't need to convince someone. I did not need to convince a terrorist, hey, we're the good guys. We're trying to help. We're trying to do this. It's like, stay on point, stay focused. The world is changing and evolving. And one of the things initially I was going to speak of, and we can do it as we progress, is, are the rising threats? Is the change in climate? Is the change in people? And also, the moves that you make as individuals, are they going to help impact the world and raise it? Or are you going to become part of the silence and mitigate your movements because you're afraid, or because you don't know what people are going to say? Because the world is evolving. So what we need to do is evolve with it. And what you do here matters. What you do here matters. I came from overseas, Andy came from overseas because we believe in you. And for the record, I'm already an EU citizen, so I already got my dual citizenship. Thank you, Greece, for giving that to me. And so I do believe in you and your mission and the good you are doing for the world, and we're here to serve you in these next hour and a half and to support you in every way we can. Thank you.
Since, guys, you are spies, I think we should start to talk a bit about the espionage that is happening in Europe. Maybe Andrew can talk about this a bit briefly, and later we can get into how we negotiate and all this stuff, and how we politicians can protect ourselves and blah, 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 blah.
So most people don't understand how espionage actually works, and I will be a little bit rudimentary and basic here, just in case anyone in here doesn't actually know how espionage works. Espionage is the stealing of secrets, and it's illegal everywhere. It's illegal everywhere. The way that spy agencies work is that spy agencies recruit their own citizens and turn them into intelligence officers. And when you take the oath to be an intelligence officer, you are given permission, a carve-out from your own country's laws so that you can execute espionage. You can execute a crime without being liable for the crime. So every CIA officer, every DGSE officer, every GRU officer, every BND officer, every Spanish intelligence officer, the list goes on, they all have protection so they can carry out espionage only against foreign countries. But espionage is illegal everywhere. There's no country that says that espionage is legal. In Europe, because the European Union specifically is a multiple country union, there's espionage in every country. And it's not just espionage that's coming from countries hostile to you, it's also coming from neighboring countries. Because, for whatever reason, in the EU, you don't trust each other. You say you work together, but you don't actually work together. You keep things hidden. So the only way that Poland knows that it can trust Spain is if it spies on Spain. And then when the Spanish diplomat says ABC, the Polish spy wants their Spanish asset to also say ABC. And they can verify it, and then they can say, yes, the diplomat is telling the truth, or no, the diplomat is not telling the truth. So espionage is a verification tool as much as it is a strategic and tactical tool. And it's happening all over Europe because all the great powers, what we call the GPC countries, global power competitive countries, global power, meaning they're trying to control the globe, China, Russia, Iran, the United States, as these countries, these GPC countries spy, they know they have to be in Europe because Europe is what's known as a permissive environment. Permissive means that your security awareness is very low, and people can get away with all sorts of criminal activity in Europe because you're not security conscious. It's easy to get across the border. It's easy to get into an important building. It's easy to make somebody give you something for free. I don't know.
He was making fun of me, guys, that to get inside this building, it was so easy. You can have a badge, just tag it, and you can enter the building from if you know the ways. So,
how many of you are carrying a paper badge right now? That's insane. If you're an American, you know that is insane that a piece of paper gets you into a government building without an escort. But Europe, most of Europe is a permissive environment. Think about all the GPC countries. Moscow is the capital of Russia. Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States. Beijing, the capital of China. Tehran, the capital of Iran. These are non-permissive environments. These are very hostile police states, heavily guarded, heavily secured locations. We can walk into Vienna, we can walk into Brussels, we can walk into Paris, and these are very permissive environments, which means all the GPC countries are committing espionage in all the largest economies, the most capable European countries, and they've been doing it for decades. So they've got experience on their side, they have history on their side, they have skill on their side, and they know that Europe has been focused on other things. Europe has been focused on the ideology rather than the practical aspects of democracy. And unfortunately, the world has used that against you. So as we talk about whether or not Europe is going to stand up and become its own multipolar sphere of influence, one of the things that we also have to consider is whether Europe has the appetite to invest in its own security infrastructure. Because if you're going to stand up and be a global leader as a union of nations, then you have very large competitors that you have to stand against. And those competitors have been taking advantage of your security shortcomings for decades.
Can you explain a bit more on that side? So how exactly is used here in Brussels, you think, the espionage? Give us an example in a way, like, I don't know, what Russia or what United States or what China you think they're doing here. They're trying to influence in what way, how espionage actually work here?
So there's two elements here. There's one element that we call the richness of the target environment, meaning how valuable is the environment that you're in. I don't know how many countries we have represented here. A
lot.
Yeah. Just in this room, I'm guessing we have, what, a dozen to 25 different countries in this room? This is a target-rich environment. And the words I'm saying are influencing 25 potential different groups of leadership, influencing the ideas of multiple countries inside the Union. So offensive intelligence operations or influence operations means that you can go into a target-rich environment and influence a group of people. So just like I have influence over you, I have a conversation I can have with you. This is a target-rich environment. This is exactly why countries like China, why the United States, why Russia come to Brussels to gain influence to large multinational groups to try to essentially hit multiple people with one message at a very low price. Espionage is not expensive. You might think it's expensive, but it's much cheaper than a war. It's much cheaper than a failed trade deal. It's very inexpensive compared to that. So offensive intelligence means you go into a target-rich environment and you carry out operations from there, whether you're trying to steal secrets. I can steal secrets from 25 different countries right now. I can shake hands. I can plant listening devices on 25 member phones right now. And if I have your phone, then I'm going to be able to connect to the phones of the other people that you serve with when you go take your phone back to your office. I'll be able to geofence your locations and find out what your pattern of life is. And this is how intelligence grows and grows and grows. So we start by talking to you and we end by tapping the phone of the Minister of Parliament or the member of the European Council that you're going to meet with for dinner tonight. That's why Russia comes here. That's why China comes here. That's why the United States is friendly with everybody in Europe, because it knows it can connect and capture phones. Who remembers when Obama got caught spying on the German chancellor? It happens. Own it. That's the truth. The other type of espionage is defensive espionage. So countries can come to a place like Brussels to understand what's known and what's expected, what's discussed about their country. So if I'm in China and I know I've got a secret trade alliance with Iran, I want to come here and find out whether or not you all think that there's a secret alliance between China and Iran. And that's defensive, what's known as counterintelligence. I'm able to collect an understanding on what you may or may not know, which helps me understand if my secret is safe. Just like we were talking about using intelligence to verify whether or not one diplomat is telling the truth, you can use intelligence to find out whether or not people understand what your plans and intentions are. It's here in Brussels you negotiate trade deals with other countries. It's here in Brussels you determine whether or not you're going to support military action in Ukraine. It's here in Brussels that you make the big decisions for what's going to happen with the rest of the EU. So of course, your enemies are here. They are here and they are using as many tools as they can.
They are seeing what we're going to talk about. They're getting a sense of what we're going to vote. And then if they were going to vote against them, they're trying to influence before the vote. So this is kind of, in a way, how espionage works.
At a fundamental level, they want to influence the way you vote. At a more advanced level, they want to collect the reasons behind how you're going to vote. They want to know what is the economic status of your country. They want to know whether or not there's division in the ranks. They want to know whether or not you're going to ally or mislead a partner country. Are France and Germany really on the same side, or are they not on the same side? And can we exacerbate or sabotage that relationship further? That's the purpose behind espionage. It's not just about who shakes your hand. It's not just about the pretty girl that sits next to you at a bar that you know is out of your league. It's also about getting on your computers. It's also about getting on your phones. It's about observing you from a a stationary observation post in a hotel room or in an apartment room. It's about listening through glass. It's a very complicated, very exciting world, but you are all absolutely the targets of that effort.
Yeah. When I allow you to use the bathroom in my office today, I was afraid that you're going to leave something there.
I don't want a listening device in your bathroom.
So to follow that, because it's about security of politicians, about security of our data and all this stuff. By the way, I want to share briefly for 10 seconds that I have problems with this. Like, a lot of people send me death threats. A lot of people come to my house in Cyprus and they write graffiti against me, by the way, not for me. So I wanted to ask, since you are protecting so many politicians, and what are some measures that we can take, maybe as a youth to be better on this, or as politicians to have better security?
Well, a lot of what is being said is that you're targets. And you might think like, oh, who's going to listen to me? Who cares about me? But you're a target and you're exposed. And like, even for example, when you're talking about cell phones, like, what do you write on your phone? You should never, ever be writing anything about what's going on in here on your phone, ever. And even when we would go overseas, I would go overseas a lot, and there were certain countries, the US government was like, don't take your phone. Or sometimes I would take my government phone. As soon as I came back, I went straight to our technical division. They're like, give me that phone, and they're like, it's going in the trash. Because that phone was garbage. They're following you, they're listening to you, and they're just collecting. Everyone's collecting. By the way, everybody spies on everybody, so don't be surprised. But yes, there is a certain naiveness, and I say this with humility, naiveness, with the EU and in certain countries, in that we think, oh, everyone wants diplomacy, everybody wants this. Not everybody does. And so you have to have that awareness of you and your movements, because it's not just about you, it's what are you leaking out into the world. People are listening and they're watching, and what are you revealing? So a big part of it is, and I don't know if you have the infrastructure. I mean, certain things, like, you're correct. You're walking to the building and I have a piece of paper and that got me in, right? When we would have certain meetings or certain parts of the White House or in certain parts of the US government, like, cell phones, like in a room like this, wouldn't be allowed. All your cell phones, these are leaks. And so maybe there is a system or a structure that needs to be put in place to help protect you, because what you're doing is, and this is what happens, is part of why the United States Secret Service exists and a lot of the protective infrastructures exist in the US, like for Congress, we have Congress, you have Capitol State Police protect them. The reason why these institutions exist, and maybe on camera they look menacing or very severe, but they exist so that the politicians can do their job. You can't do your job if you're worried about what? Am I safe? Am I going to go home? What am I going to find when I'm going to go home? And then you're going to filter everything you say and do because you're thinking about what? There's that contrast of protecting myself or saying what I need to say. And you're doing this. That's an incredible amount of pressure and burden to be placed on someone. And I think not projecting out into the world thinking everybody is the way we are and they want to work together and try, it does not. It's a naive way to think. It's like you want to come in with the best of intentions, but you must be proactive in thinking about, what am I doing? What am I saying? Who am I communicating with? Am I leaking information? So I think with...
No phones in meetings, important meetings?
I would turn my phone off. I would at least turn it off completely. Turn your phone off. It's your personal...
As an American intelligence officer, please leave your phones on.
Yes, and he's correct. But you shouldn't be bringing your phones in, and maybe depending on the meetings you guys have these internal discussions. And I was asking Phidias before, I'm like, what internal structures do you have for safety and security outside of the physical security of this building? And it seems that it's minimal, even when it comes to protection. I was reading up on it. I've got it here. I scribbled all over it. But I went shopping and I was reading a lot of the stuff that's been written. This one's violence and intimidation against politicians in the EU. And what I was surprised when I was reading this is the data off of this is from the country specific. There's no internal system here that collects the amount of threats that you guys get. There's nowhere for you to go to say, hey, I received a threat. Hey, somebody's stalking me. And that is unacceptable because the structure is not going to be able to last. Also, again, what do we say? You're not going to make impact because you've got two opposing contrasts happening. I'm afraid I need to take care of myself. One, It's going to filter what you do, which way you vote, what you say, whether it's fear here or overseas back at your home country with retaliation. The other thing is, it takes an immense amount of cognitive load, meaning you have a certain cognitive load. There's only so much that you can do. So if you're trying to create impact, it's going to take from here because, well, I have to protect myself and think about my personal safety. And so you can't do both effectively. Your performance is going to shrink. So perhaps, and again, I'm a little...
So it's the infrastructure that needs to improve
I'm
here.
surprised that something like that does not exist here, a place where you can go at least to collect the amount of threats that are received, the type of threats that are received, where they are received. Like, you don't have an internal collection system. I had to read through this and then get it from each specific country, and different countries document things differently. One country may look at this as, I'm being stalked, and another country be like, all right, they're insulting you. There's very different levels. And then from within that, creating maybe a physical system. Again, I'm surprised it doesn't exist. It just can't be the physical system in the building. When you do protection, by the way, this is where you're the safest, supposedly, except when you've got Andes listen to you all the time. But physical security, this is where you're the safest. You know where you're the weakest? Our protectees were the weakest. Arrival, departure, when you're moving. You're going somewhere or you're leaving somewhere. This is where you're the weakest and most vulnerable. This is where they can do something to you, target you. Public spaces. So you have nothing set up there to protect you in that capacity, even your physical home. And what we do, and I can't give away too much, but even within the United States Secret Service, we had layers of threats. When, for example, I'll use you all. So again, as I said before, when a foreign country comes to the United States, doesn't matter the foreign country, even if they were an adversary, we gave them Secret Service protection. I would protect foreign countries, to include countries that didn't like us, Russia's and the China's. We protected everybody. We had different threat levels, and based on those threat levels, we would decide who gets what. And you need something here to protect you against so that you can function and do your job. Otherwise, like, what's the point of having you here? You're crippled. You're crippled. You're mitigated. You're contracting in, and you're not going to be able to get anything done. You can't, and even some of these countries, I read they would create psychological support for people who are getting harassed. You don't need psychological support. The way it works, and I've seen this with my protectees, they're able to do what they're going to do because they know no physical harm can come to me. If I know no physical harm can come to me, I can do and say what I need to do. But if in the back of my mind, I am worried about my physical safety, you can give me psychological support all day long and tell me don't worry about it, feel better, do some deep breathing techniques. What am I going to do with that if I am constantly worried about my physical safety? So to be efficient at what you do, there must be a system and infrastructure outside of the security system, the bodyguards and the doors and the glass and the magnetometers. That's the bare minimum that is needed to create a protection and safe environment. I'll even throw some numbers at you. Just in the United States alone, I was looking at our data as threats. Now, the United States Secret Service we don't release, the agency doesn't release the threats that it gets to the protectees we have. However, I was able to pull the threats that are given to the members of Congress in the United States. I did a comparison. In 2017, members of Congress received approximately 3,939 threats. 3,939 threats in 2017, our members of government. In 2024, that went up to 9,474. 9,474. And you must be thinking, I don't understand what's going on. A couple of things are going on. One, the naiveness, not being aware of my security, understanding that I'm a target. That's one. And then projecting that onto other countries. Oh, no, everybody wants to get along. Because a politician can look at you like, oh, let's get along. But behind the scenes, there's a whole other machine happening. The other thing is the escalation of social media and online. Initially, when we would get threats against the president or somebody had to physically show up, I would see you. And sometimes I would see you, we called it multiple sightings over distance and time. I would see you multiple times at different places, and I'd know I have a problem, right? So a person would physically have to come. Or they would write a letter, a person would physically write a letter. In fact, the agency had the largest ink bank in the world because we would analyze letters all day long, and we would analyze papers. So sometimes we would get a letter, and we would know, we would actually pull out, and we'd be able to figure out what pen was used to write this letter. And then we would go back and figure out when this pen was made, what manufacturer made it, where they distributed this pen, and then geolocate the place or city of where this pen was manufactured. And from there, right, I'm narrowing down my scope for my investigation. those were typically the things you had to look out for. Now it's social media. All I got to do is get up on this thing and write something on this. Everybody's got a microphone, and some people should not have one. The other thing is when you're looking at exposure, we call it protective intelligence, and I think it's lost on people. When you're saying stuff, even yourselves, I read about how they want you guys to have better etiquette in the way you speak to or for or of each other, because it plays a role. Because yes, there's people listening to what you say, and a lot of people in the world are not mentally sound. A lot of the protective threats we would get them from people with mental illnesses or mental health issues. A lot of them. People are not as strong-willed as we think they are. A lot of factors come in. Youth, anybody under the age of 25, it's a little bit of a draw there. First of all, under the age of 25, I'm a former psychology professor, your brain isn't fully developed. Your brain fully develops at the age of 25 and after. So that's one. So youth are very susceptible. People with mental, sorry for my young people, but it's okay, we've all been there.
He's 23.
How old are you?
I'm just developed, 25.
Mental health issues. People do have mental health issues, and I do think we're seeing an even escalation with using social media, being online, because you're so exposed and inundated with this thing. And this is influenced, by the way. When you're reading stuff, you don't even know if you're talking to a human being or human beings writing it, but from other countries. So you have to have that awareness and have an awareness of what you're posting. And that's a whole other conversation, right? And then people are just weak-willed. So when they hear stuff and they're being influenced, you don't know how they're going to behave. All these things together and all these places where now I can write a threat. Thousands and thousands of people can write threats. Now, how do you know what's legitimate and what's not? And that's the other problem we would have in the security world. You have to go through all of these, and I have to figure out what's real, what's nonsense, and who do I need to go interview, and who's capable of doing what. So really having that sense of security and awareness for yourself, and you don't have to do a lot, but it's all the small things you can do, but simply just having that awareness of being like, okay, what am I doing? But there should be more security in what we would call OPSEC, operational security here within the EU to support you in what you do. It cannot just fall on the host country, because for the record, every host country has different resources and capabilities. Some are good, some not so good. And so you need that support system.
You want to talk about geopolitics, baby? So you said about Europe that it's in trouble, you said, if we need to stand that in our legs, you said. What does that mean practically?
One of the things that I observe about Europe, and Evy already said she's a citizen of Greece. My family will start their hopeful immigration and citizenship journey in 2027. We are still picking which country we want to migrate to. We've been invited by Cyprus.
Come to Greece.
If anybody else wants to offer home to an American expat CIA family, we are happy to oblige. But here's the deal is that Europe needs to make some hard decisions, because the decisions that you have made for the last few decades have brought you to where you are now. So for anybody who's ever tried to lose weight, or for anybody who's ever decided they need to make a change in their life, you know that the thing that brings you to the point of change is the previous decisions that you made to get to where you are now. Well, that's what's happening all over the world. America is where America is now because of the decisions that Americans have made. The same thing is true in Asia. The same thing is true in Africa and Latin America, and of course here in Europe. So European leaders have made decisions that brought you to the point where you are now. So you have to decide, do you want to stay on the same trajectory, or do you want to make a change? And when you make a change, you then have to decide, do you make a slow change or a rapid change? That question of how fast, how aggressive, how severe a change do we make is really tied to your competitors. And we are in a place where the competition against Europe is largely authoritarian. China's an authoritarian state, Russia's an authoritarian state, the United States is becoming more and more authoritarian every week. We are bypassing our own legislation, we are changing our policies, we are undermining our democracy. It's open, you read about it every day, it's real, there's consternation all across the United States for it, but it will continue because the United States has to keep pace with its competitors. The United States is a very practical country. We often call the United States a democracy. It's a democracy second. It's a capitalist country first. And as long as democracy benefits our capitalism, we will be democratic. But when democracy threatens our capitalism, we start to abandon certain pillars of democracy in order to maintain our American primacy, our role as a global superpower.
Like there is an attack to Venezuela.
Like Venezuela. The United States going into Venezuela was illegal in every sense of the word until the United States labeled Maduro a narco-terrorist, a term that's not even a real term. And until the state of New York had an indictment against Maduro, which is arguably illegal to have an indictment against a foreign person that's not one of your citizens. We had to build this series of exemptions and then use CIA to execute a covert action, which they are legally allowed to do, so that we could create this lily pad sequence of legal activities, only legal to the United States, that would allow us to capture and kidnap a foreign leader that we disagreed with. That's really all it was. But the reason that the United States is able to do that, the reason that when it goes through the court systems, it will be determined to be legal, is because of the exemption after exemption after exemption that we had to put in place in order to carry out that operation. The United States of 10 years ago would have never done that. Now we are actively seeing the United States, the pillar of democracy, the leader of the free world, forcibly triggering regime change. That's not going to change overnight. That's not going to stop.
Go to answer my question. So what Europe needs to do?
So what Europe needs to do is ask itself the question, how fast are we willing to change? How fast are we willing to invest in our own security? How fast are we willing to change our cultural norms for security? How fast are we willing to break?
And security, you mean defense?
I mean every level of security. How fast are we willing to increase our protection for our parliamentarians? How fast are we willing to stop using our cell phones for work conversations? And how fast are we willing to invest in our own defense infrastructure? Because you are dependent on the United States for defense. All of Europe is dependent on the United States for defense. And if you disagree with me, that's fine. You're wrong. You need American weapons. That's why you buy them. You need American intelligence. You need American cooperation. Like, the United States has put this in motion for 70 years, and they're not going to change their approach. They're going to keep you dependent on the United States. So if you actually want strategic independence for Europe, you have to move quickly to establish and rely on your own arms, your own weapons, your own capabilities. You have some of the best weapons in the world. You just don't sell enough of those weapons to have a geopolitical economic benefit from your weapons sales. So you have everything here. You have the natural resources, the skills, the capabilities, everything is here, except the will to make a rapid change. And that is what the world needs. It needs you to change your will.
Basically, you have something to say on this?
I was going to, actually, you guys did a whole paper on this, just supporting what he just said.
Don't forget
Yes,
the mic. I will
microphone.
keep it always open.
So actually, it's interesting because I went around and I perused the stuff, the work you've done.
Probably you are the only person reading those. Joking.
That's
Joking.
terrible.
Joking.
That's terrible. United States Defense Industrial Base, how it differs from European Defense Technological Industrial Base. And you know what this says? You rely on the United States way too much for your military stuff. It's your research. He just told you exactly what it's accurate. And so, just to, again, I'm not geopolitical really, but I understand security and systems just because of the traveling we did in the world. And even when I go to countries, they're like, oh, we have guns and weapons. And I'd be like, I don't want your guns and weapons. I want my guns and weapons. I would bring all my assets from the United States to the country. Cars, even the cars, the president of the United States. Anywhere in the world you see the president, whose cars are he in? Is he in? Our cars. We bring our cars because I don't want to use your cars. I don't trust your cars. I don't trust your equipment. I want my cars. We call them cargo planes. And I put in my orders and I'd be like, I need X amount of cars. I need X amount. I would even bring my own magnetometers. You know the things downstairs that you go through? I don't want yours. The United States doesn't want yours. We want ours. We would ship them over to your country. That has to tell you something about your capabilities. It's not about, I think sometimes we think we're going to make the rest of the world be like us in ideology, and sometimes they just don't. And so there's a little bit of trying to influence the world, and there's also a little bit of living in reality. And what is reality? And I have to adapt to my reality. And creating your own strategic defense and security systems in every possible way, and what he is right, is important. And even the countries within, there's nothing worse than waiting for somebody else to save you. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse. It's good to support one another, but there's nothing worse than waiting for someone to give you something, because you sit there and you're waiting like this. I'll give you a simple example. I grew up, my parents are immigrants. They came from Greece. I was born in Harlem, New York, Washington Heights, one of the worst crime neighborhoods in the United States. We were poor. We were poor. And when my parents, at one point, we moved into government housing. This is actually after my parents got citizenship. We moved into government housing. It's where it's subsidized housing for people who don't have wealth. And we lived there for the first few years. And you would think, oh, that's wonderful. And it was, and I appreciate it. But also at the same time, I learned what it means to wait for somebody to give you something. And a simple example was the heat. I live in New York. New York City gets really cold. And there were times where it was so cold in the house, freezing. And I would say to my mom, Mom, why is it so cold? She's like, they haven't turned the heat on. And what we would do, and we go into a little kitchen, was probably the size of this, and I would open the oven, literally turn the oven on, open it, and I'd stand like this in front of the oven to warm myself. And I remember thinking, this is, I don't ever want to wait for somebody to give me heat or to help me survive. And
so this is an example for the United States that we need to...
This is an example for you.
We need to stand up in our own...
To have your own independence. It's like create relationships, but not reliance. Where you're so reliant on somebody else, when that goes away, you're like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. How are we going to do this? Because your system falters. That's what I'm saying. It's wonderful to have subsidies and give and get economic wealth. But when you take a country like the United States that says, you know what, us giving money away is no longer makes sense, which it doesn't. They're at a deficit. You know, the U.S. became that rich uncle who was like, who needs money? Who needs money? Who needs money? And now they're like, oh, wait a minute. We don't have money to give. We're going to stop. And then everybody in the world's like, wait a minute. Why are you stopping money? They're stopping money because they're struggling. They're trying to recover. They're like, we're going to lose who we are if we're doing this all the time. So I think the theme is find ways in which you can have relationships, but not create this dependence where you're waiting for somebody else to turn the heat on for you so you can be warm. Warm your own house.
So, with that being said, I think we'll move it to questions for you guys. So, raise your hand if you have questions. Okay, let's go with Andrew to start first.
Thank you, Phidias. Thank you, friends. Firstly, I would like to say hello to BIS, to the Czech Secret Services and all other world services who have tapped this phone. Hello. Let me introduce me. I'm a hillbilly from Czech Republic and also an MEP. I studied in St. Louis, Missouri. I respect United States. They gave me the scholarship and education. Thank you very much. But I'm a Czech. I'm Czech patriot. I'm not even a European. We are part of the EU, but this is not a country. You cannot be patriot of EU. You can be patriot of Czech Republic or Cyprus or Germany or whatever. I don't endorse that we would be controlled by either Germans or Russians or Americans, but it happened in past and it is happening now. If you take a look at any elections in our country, you will see the influence of whomever who has enough money. We can name USAID, you can name NYD, you can name British Embassy, Taiwanese Embassy, whomever in the world. Perhaps there are some others. I would like to ask, what can a politician do to maintain the sovereignty of a small country like Czech Republic is? Thank you very much.
I really appreciate the candor, the honesty in that question. When you are in a position of political leadership, the options are really limitless. Have you ever heard that there's no such thing as a stupid question? Have you ever heard that statement before? So I disagree. There are such a thing as stupid questions. But the idea behind the stupid question is that any thought you are having, other people are having too. The problem is that, especially in democratic countries, especially in first world or sophisticated countries, we feel like we can't be honest. We call it, in the United States, we call it calling the baby ugly. There are some ugly fucking babies out there. You've probably seen some ugly babies, but what does everybody say to the mom? What a beautiful baby. No, it's not a beautiful, even the mom knows it's not a beautiful baby. So when you're a small country, you have a bigger chance to have an honest conversation that more people will agree with if you have the honest conversation. And what you just said, we know that we're being influenced by these foreign countries. We know that it's happening. That's the beginning of a very honest conversation that could change the trajectory of your country. Even when you said you can't be a patriot to the European Union. That's telling. I hope you all heard him say that. He identified as a Czech patriot. So here you are, a union that isn't loyal to the union. In the United States, guess what we call ourselves? Americans. Not New Yorkers, not Georgian residents, not Floridians. We call ourselves Americans, married to the union first. So that's just one example of the conversation that needs to happen, not just in the Czech Republic, but all across Europe. Who are you trying to defend? Who are you putting first? And can you have an honest conversation about the countries that are not enabling you to put yourself first, not enabling you to have the success that you want to have? You're not alone, sir, I guarantee you.
That was an honest question and an honest answer. Yeah. By the way, guys, I see a lot of people, they travel from far to come here. I saw UK, I saw Italy, I saw Spain. So it's super cool that you took the time. Okay.
Hi, and thank you for this amazing session. And I'm coming from Netherlands. I work with an organization which works on human rights, so I have been interacting with European Union as well, specifically on GSP Plus agreement with countries, developing economies. And I saw that there are some obligations that European Union has in that agreement, which those countries which are benefiting from the trade agreement and they're enjoying tariff-free trades with the European countries. Specifically Pakistan, which has been violating human rights in its country. And we have been documenting everything and bringing it to the European Parliament as well, to the ministers. And I have been interacting with multiple MEPs here. But last time when I met an MEP, as you have been indicating during this session, that how United States is influencing, I was also told that nothing can be done for the money which is being distributed by the European Union to the countries like Pakistan. In 1 year, 620 million free trade was offered to Pakistan.
Summarize your question, please.
The question is, if there is a huge influence of United States in the European Parliament, what can we do to protect the culture of law in the Europe?
You're hitting exactly the heartbeat of today's conversation. European interests are not being represented even by Europeans. They're being manipulated by foreign powers. And those foreign powers have built a systematic manipulation of Europe's decisions, America being chief among them. The United States doesn't even have to control a minister of parliament now because they've created a chain of dependence that makes it so we already know the predictable outcomes of what your decisions are going to be. So you can bring facts, you can bring evidence, and you can demonstrate how you're not fulfilling your own promise to yourselves and your own people. And the answer at the decision maker level is going to be that our hands are tied. You heard Evy talking about it earlier. We don't have options. And that is part of the will that you need to exercise, because getting out of those chains takes effort. It takes risk. It takes tolerance for discomfort, but you can get out of those chains. The United States isn't going to put effort into keeping those chains on you because they've invested in that for the last 60 years. So again, your point is a valid point, and the promise that the European Union is supposed to represent gets watered down. You fail to deliver the promise of the service that you provide because there are elements that you believe are out of your control. And frankly speaking, they are currently. But with the will to make a change for strategic independence, for true union, for economic reliance on each other rather than economic alliance on GPC countries that are fighting against each other, you could make a change. You could make a change. You could make a change rapidly. I hope that answers your question.
I'm just going to jump in here in a different context, similar, to kind of enhance what Andy's saying. Countries and unions have hard power and soft power. There's two powers. Your hard power is your military might, whether you want to like it or not, your strength. It is your economic might. That is hard power. Then there's soft power, which is influence, diplomacy, talking to people, people wanting to come to your country. The United States of America has incredible soft power. Everybody wants to come. We have a problem. We're trying to mitigate the influx of people. That's soft power. The issue you're having, and a lot of countries have, is everyone's gone so much into soft power, which I think is what the EU has done as a whole, that they've forgotten their hard power. Guys, no one's going to listen to you. Nobody does diplomacy if they see you as weak or less than. They look at your might. They sit down at the table with you to talk to you because they're like, I don't want problems with this person or this country. What can I do? And also, is it to my self-interest, right? The United States or someplace might be like, we don't really care about that right now. And then that's where the issue is, and it falls to the side. But you can't have diplomacy unless they either respect you or maybe, and people may not like this, fear you. That's what brings diplomacy. If I'm not worried about you and you can't do anything to me, I don't have to be a diplomat if I don't want to. But if I'm concerned about you, I'm like, I need to sit down and negotiate because I don't want problems here. So you have significant work to do in enhancing your hard power, which is what will help your soft power, your influence in getting things done. The other thing here is, and I'm completely speculating or surmising, maybe you guys here are tackling too many tasks, too many different agendas. And when you're spread out thin, you're gonna get nothing done because this guy's doing this and she's doing that and she's doing this. Maybe creating a system and working together where everybody's not focused on their agenda and being like, what should we collectively look on? What are the top 5 or 10 things we should be putting energy into so we can successfully execute? You can talk all day long, but are you executing things or are you just talking? I'm very much like, where's the outcome? What's the result? Did you do X, Y, and Z? Or did you have a lot of meetings about X, Y, and Z? Those two things are not the same. So maybe if the agendas are too many or you're spread out, it's creating a system of what are the top 10 for this year? What are the top 10 for next year? And working so that you can actually get things done.
Yeah, I was confused when I came inside this house, guys. I came inside this house, I didn't know anything. And then I started understanding after a year that everyone works so hard, but only on 20% of the staff that work so hard are actually important. So they work, make reports about everything, 24/7, make meetings about this and this and this. And about the important things, we forget to give more time to. So I think what you said is one of the biggest problems of the EU, because we're doing so many things, and if you are trying to do everything, you do nothing. So if you focus on stuff, you get things done.
Sometimes there's an illusion of that. I'm busy. Just because you're busy, it doesn't mean you're productive. Those two things are not the same. And I think that's where your alignment has to be. Am I creating work to create work? But what am I producing, right? It's your mission. It always goes back. What's your mission? And if you're not executing your mission, you're not doing anything. And quite honestly, and I mean this with humility, you're wasting taxpayer money because you're getting paid to be here. What are you creating? What are you executing? Or are you just taking that money and, we're just...
And this is a byproduct of this bureaucracy. So the bureaucracy wants to keep you busy. So this is what we need to fight against, this bureaucratic kind of system. I don't know if Andrew has something to say or we'll move to the next question. Okay.
Yeah. Hola. Hi. My name is Oliver. I'm from the Netherlands. And first of all, thank you so much for being here. This was awesome to me. I hear a lot of your podcasts all the time, so it was very interesting to see y'all up close and discuss these very important topics that are, security is at the forefront of our things that we should focus on in the European Union. But we are a democracy, so the first thing we need to get straight is: do we all want the EU to stay as it is? If you think about it as a superpower, if we look at the United States, these were 13 different states that at one point choose to give up some independence to become a state, and that is something that we're talking about different security systems, different systems that should be, I think, top down and then spread out, and just one command stuff. But we have so many different countries that it's very hard to execute that. And in order to get to the place where we become one, get these things where we have one state-like powers, everybody should be on the same page. And
move to your question.
Yeah. Well, I could imagine that this will be like a big issue. I think how do you think we should go about this? Because we can't force people's opinions, but there are a lot of people that.
So basically, the federalized, do we all need to unite as Europe? And this is the question. If you want to answer, I don't know the answer. By the way, I'm conflicted.
Yeah, my answer is not going to be popular.
Yeah.
Your bureaucracy is killing you. The fact that your default response to any change is some sort of bureaucratic process. What form do I have to fill out? Who do I have to talk to? How many votes do I need? Your bureaucracy here absolutely murders your ability to have progress quickly. And your enemies are counting on that. What I would actually recommend, not that I don't know if this is even legal according to the EU, but I would recommend that the EU triggers some kind of emergency powers. An emergency power tied to the threat on democracy, an emergency power tied to the threat from Russia, an emergency power tied to something that allows you to bypass bureaucracy for 80% of the unimportant tasks that you have, so that you can consolidate efforts by skipping bureaucratic steps, so that you can consolidate on the most important issues facing your union. If you don't have some way of quickly cutting out the bureaucracy, then you're going to be trapped in a cycle that continues to be taken advantage of by your opponents. That would be the fastest way to get there. Even if that means triggering an emergency power that allows you to re-vote on who stays in the union. It's better to have 4 countries utterly committed to each other than to have 27 countries questionably committed to each other. And you have no way of predicting the future as long as you continue to carry out the path that you're carrying out. And I will tell you this, it's not just your problem, it's the whole world's problem. Because the world would benefit from a more coordinated European Union. The world would benefit from the economic optimization of what you have here. I would be completely happy with 4 countries instead of 27 countries that are super productive, rather than 27 countries that still debate whether or not the Russian invasion of Ukraine is acceptable. So that would be my recommendation. You have to make drastic change, unpopular change, change that people will argue with you and say, wait, we need a bureaucratic council about that. And somebody needs to say, we're going to skip that step and we're going to move to vote.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. You're speaking about independence from US, but I spent like 2 months de-googling myself, trying to get off US-based platforms and trying to get involved into some kind of a new wave of European-based digital platforms that will create this security. Can you comment on that? Because I see that lots of people are not ready to de-Google, not ready to give up on their Instagrams, Gmail, and US-based systems.
So this is a really good example. All these are created where? These systems that you rely on in the United States? What are you creating? Do you see what I mean? It goes back to like, what are you guys doing? So how are you gonna get off of these systems if you yourselves aren't innovating and creating and kind of bringing yourselves up to be able to do these things?
I'm going to interrupt you, Evie, just because do you know how China got off American systems? They fucking turned them off. And when there was no Facebook, the Chinese created Renren. And when there was no Instagram, the Chinese created their own version. They forced innovation by forcibly cutting the population off of United States platforms because they knew what Evie and I are now going to openly tell you, that the United States uses technology to make you dependent on US technology, because that gives us access into your demographics and your behaviors even better than your own demographics into your behaviors. That's what Evie was just saying. There's no consolidated database about reporting within the EU. There's a consolidated database and some secret American server about all of your fucking behaviors. I promise you that. Sorry, Evie.
No, go ahead. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, what are you making? And maybe part of the issue is that, you know, regulations, or you're creating systems that makes it very hard for your countries to have innovators and creators. You know, and you did touch on something. It's like, how many countries do you need in the EU? It seems like you're focused on quantity and not quality. Sometimes we think like more is more. More is more headaches, more variables, more people to convince, more problems. More is more. Even I'm a business now, both Andy and I. When I bring somebody on to hire somebody, work with someone, I look at them very carefully, because that's going to be a partnership, and you're either going to be a blessing or a headache. So again, I say this with humility, and I'm not a geopolitical analyst. Stop letting people in. Stop. Figure out who's in and start making better quality relations so you can work together. Stop expanding. The more you expand, it looks good on a map. Look how big we are, but then we go back to, but what are we getting done? What alternatives do we have? And we don't, right? It all comes to the same core. And you can be a strength and still work with all these other countries, still work with the US, still work with Russia or China. Like, no one's saying to alienate, but it means like people also, you have to walk into the room and you have to bring that presence. You know how like somebody walks into a room and you're like, I don't know who they are, but they're bringing something. Bring that. Europe's a wonderful place. Like, again, my ancestors, my parents, they're European. Like, bring that with you all, instead of, again, like this kind of defaulting to other people to solve your problems. It's like, bring that innovation, speak, and also sometimes for the sake of diplomacy, we water ourselves down. We need to be diplomatic. You need to be diplomatic, yes, and democracy, but at the same time, you must be practical. You want to bring a little bit of that practical element in there, not just, it sounds good, the ideology is great, but then in the end, like, can people really rely on you to get things done?
Well, I was having a conversation with Phidias today, and I mentioned to him the idea that why doesn't the European Union just kick the US out of NATO? U.S. threatens to kick itself out of NATO. The U.S. threatens to leave NATO, right? The Dutch are worried about Greenland and the end of NATO. What about just telling the United States, hey, guess what? We don't want you here anymore. Yes, it's going to hurt us a lot, but it's going to help us a lot too. And that goes, what you're talking about with social media emulates itself in national security, emulates itself with forcing yourself to take action. That's what Evy's talking about, is taking away options to force yourself to take action. Anybody here ever stop buying something from the grocery store because you wanted to eat less of it at home? Stop buying chocolate, stop buying bread, stop buying something. So you're like, if I don't have it, I won't eat it. That's exactly what we're talking about here on a national level. You have options. Maybe your ministers won't support it. Maybe some politician won't support it. But if you never say it, then that seed never has a chance to grow.
So some of the biggest problems in the EU is the energy problem, energy infrastructure and all this stuff. The other thing that we talked about is bureaucracy, but another big problem is illegal immigration. And I wanted to ask you guys, what are your thoughts about this? Maybe we'll start with Evy.
So in the United States, I work for one of the major networks, and I cover law enforcement issues. crime, criminal justice, and immigration kind of falls under that. And, you know, again, I'm the daughter of immigrants. My parents went to the United States through a legal port of entry, and I am the product of the United States. I know without a doubt that had I not grown up in the United States, I would not have had the opportunities that I have now. I just want to be transparent. I wouldn't even be here. I don't know where I would be. I would have never been a Secret Service agent if I stayed in my parents' home country. I knew, I say this because it's important, because I knew nothing and nobody. My parents had no connections to anything, and yet I was able to. I actually started in the NYPD as a police officer. My parents thought I was crazy. What is this? And then from there, I went to the U.S. Secret Service, into the White House. I remember walking to the White House, there was days, and I chuckled to myself. I'm like, how did I get here? You know, and I'm just like, good job, me. But I also understood the opportunity that was given. So with that, the U.S. gives wonderful opportunity, and I am a true recipient of that. Again, but from the law enforcement aspect, you have to have a system and structure in place to control the inflow of people. The United States, no matter how powerful it is, no country, you do not have infinite resources. You don't have infinite resources. You can't have everybody. You just can't. There must be a system and structure put in place. And I understand sometimes it's like, we feel bad, we feel this. You also have to be practical. One, I don't have infinite resources, and that's an economic standpoint. The other thing is, from a security standpoint, whenever I see it crossing borders and entries, like I'm seeing people moving in and out, and you don't know who they are or what they're doing. You must own your security and understanding who's in there and what they're doing. If you have people moving around within your country and you don't know, it becomes an issue. It's going to become an issue later. Again, it's safety and security. So these are really important things. The other thing is, if you have laws in place, in the United States, by the way, you know when immigration law started in the US? 1790. 1790 is when they started immigration law. That's a very long time ago. So they've been looking at this from then. And then over the years into the 1800s and 1900s, it's evolved and gotten stricter and stricter and stricter because the US has had such soft power influence. Everybody wants to come, including my family, right? That they're like, well, we need to assess this and control this and do this in a meaningful way. So when you create laws, you must enforce those laws. You know, I'll tell you two things. Like if you want to stop a behavior, and it's criminal justice model, one of the theories is if you want to stop behavior, if you want to either stop crime or bad behavior, there's two things that you must do. One, a person must know, I'm going to get caught. If I do this, I'm going to get caught. Number one. That must be true. The second thing to deter a behavior you don't want is, if I get caught or they get caught, there must be a consequence. That's it. These are the two things you must have. You're gonna get caught, I know I'm gonna get caught, and or there will be a consequence. I will be punished, or whatever that is. You take away one of these two things, you're done. You can't control human behavior. Human behavior we've been trying to control from, I don't know how long, from 2000 BC, Code of Hammurabi. When you ever hear eye for an eye, they were trying to control human behavior. And so when you create laws, it's either you create them and you enforce them or you don't have them at all. Those are the things that are going to help when it comes to immigration policies. And so again, it's like, am I opening a floodgates? And again, going back to some of the European Mediterranean countries, they have the issue of people coming in on boats, and like, now what do you do? Systems and structures must be put in place, creating legal ports of entry. The other thing is too, there's a lot of people that wait. They wait years and years and years. There's a woman I know, she works at the coffee shop nearby where I live. She waited 7 years to bring her husband to the United States. 7 years, legally. What message does that send to her? I'm trying to do this the right way. Legally. I remember she would talk to me all the time because she thought I had some hook. And I'm like, this is America, it doesn't work like that. I can't make a phone call, get your husband here. But I would tell her, I'm like, I'd help her with, if she had questions about paperwork or something, I'd do my best. 7 years she waited. She finally got him over. But again, that's a structure and system in place. And what does it send to the message to the people that are trying to do it the right way? Because when you dismiss all that, then people say, well, what does it matter? I don't need to follow the rules. And that has a ripple effect. Because it doesn't just stop there. It's like, why we don't have to follow this rule and this rule and this rule because I feel bad or because it doesn't look well. And it's like, it's what do you believe in, your values and belief systems? But again, you need to have some practicality to secure a country and to create a safe environment, and also to show, like, I know what's going on in my house. It's your house. Your country's your house. Do you know what's going on in your house? Can you control your house? Like, if you open the door to your home and somebody comes in and they run around the furniture, they step all over the furniture, what do? You're like, whoa, 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 you're a guest, get out. Own your homes and then figure out the way to do that, but you must, law, instructions, and systems are important. I don't know if you have anything to add, Andy.
Yeah, who here has heard that immigration is a human right? Anybody heard that before? Yeah? A couple of not so brave people like, yeah, just don't look at me. Yeah, we've heard that immigration is a human right. It's not. Movement is a human right. You are allowed to relocate. You are allowed to pursue a better condition, but immigration is a legal issue. And you are not given a human right to immigrate. Immigration has become, over the last few decades, this idea like it's a fairness thing, it's a kindness thing, it's something that we're supposed to do to support our fellow man. Immigration is intended to support the country receiving the immigrant. That's the purpose of immigration. Well, why would you ever want an immigrant to come to your country? Because you want their knowledge, their talent, their commitment. Maybe you need more laborers, so you invite immigrants in to commit labor acts. Maybe you need more intellectual innovation, so you invite them in because they have a special skill or a special knowledge base. You've heard of skilled visas in foreign countries. They are actively trying to attract skilled workers to enhance, to contribute to society, to build a stronger nation. That's what immigration was intended to do. To bring in people that will contribute and to keep out people who will spend or waste resources, consume an asymmetrical amount of resources compared to what they create. We have to accept that immigration is supposed to serve us, not serve the immigrant. I am also from an immigrant family. Unlike Evy's family, my family immigrated to the United States illegally from Mexico. But because of loose immigration laws at the time, they were able to have babies in the United States, and the babies got citizenship automatically, and now I have also grown up with opportunities that nobody in my family earned except by taking the risk of getting caught and thrown out. So I'm lucky. Evy has already identified she's also lucky. We all recognize the opportunity of immigration, but the most staunch supporters of immigration inside the United States, do you think they're Americans or do you think they're immigrants? They're immigrants. Because people understand once you make it in, you have to police the border. You have to recognize that every person you bring in that doesn't contribute to your country degrades your country, degrades your economy, degrades your systems, undermines the policies and the laws that other people are trying to adhere to. So immigration is tricky. Immigration has a purpose. Immigration needs to be enforced so that the right people get in, the wrong people stay out. Contributing people come in, non-contributing people stay out. It needs to be taken seriously. It can't be whitewashed as a human right. It can't be whitewashed as a negative thing. There has to be a balance, and only you know what that right balance is, how it serves you best. It's so funny people try to hide from the topic of immigration because of political sensitivities. But it's really something you need to lean into. You all are going to choose a spouse or a partner someday. You're going to discriminate against lots of people who you don't take to your bed. So why not discriminate against the people that you let into your own country? It's an important but valid question.
Okay, next question.
Can we call him this guy? Because he's been patient the whole time.
Yes, you guys are calling now.
Thank you very much.
Talking. I prefer it.
How can information be extracted from a person that is aware of the techniques you talk about in your videos and books? Because I think that the approach changed. And just one last, how spies extract information from other spies? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So we have two categories of people when you come to CIA. There's trained and untrained. And every trained intelligence officer is trained to spot another trained intelligence officer so that we can avoid them, unless we want to approach them. It's always better to use your trained skill against somebody who has no trained skill, an untrained person. But when you go trained against trained, you have your situation. How do you extract information from somebody who knows you're trying to extract information? And that happens in politics, that happens in diplomacy, that happens all over the place, right? One of the first things to do is recognize that you're going up against somebody who's aware of your techniques. And you have to respect them as a professional because they're trained also. Do you think professional athletes like to compete against other professional athletes or like to compete against amateurs? They like competing against the professionals. It's a chance to sharpen their skill, get better, have a more sophisticated competition. And I would encourage you to see the same thing. When you know you're going up against somebody and you're trying to extract information from somebody who's trained in the same level as you, you need to hone your abilities even further. One of the best ways to do that is to acknowledge that you know that they are skilled. Call them what they are. You're a skilled negotiator. You're a skilled informant. You're a skilled diplomat. You're skilled. You have talent. I'm a little bit nervous to talk to you because I know how good you are at this. But I have to have this conversation anyway.
It's like making them bragging in some way.
It's validating to them that they don't have an advantage. It's validating to them that you know they're skilled, and that shows them that they need to understand that you're skilled too. You're skilled enough to see their skill. So it triggers an ego-based lever that disarms them, but it also sends a very clear message that they need to appreciate and respect your skill also. So when you have that common ground, it's in the nuance from there that your skill really, truly takes over. I would never be afraid to approach somebody and highlight and respect them for what they actually have.
You know, I was going to jump in just because I wasn't in espionage. However, I had a lot of espionage done on me by foreign countries because we traveled the world so much. And I was very hyper aware. And I always knew who somebody was from an intelligence agency, even though they come in as diplomats and be like, oh, I'm the art attaché or whatever with this country. And a very subtle thing they would do, I would see this all the time, we'd like to take you to lunch. Lunch. I cannot tell you how many free meals I was offered. Let's just go have lunch. We'll talk about the thing. And I would never go. And if I had to, I was always like, in my head, I'm like, I want an office, I want a table, I want to know what I need to know, I need to leave. I wouldn't say that to him because I'm a diplomat, right? And I had a diplomatic passport. I was a diplomat, I needed to get things done, but I would avoid certain scenarios. And I will tell you, I don't know how many agents I would be with, and I'm like, dude, do not go to lunch. Do you not see what this is? Remember one country, and they do it very subtly. They build trust, they build a relationship, and then you start leaking information. Oh, I have to go to work later. So-and-so needs this report. Oh, what report? And you just leak. Oh, tomorrow this country's coming in, I have a meeting. That's it, that's all you need to say. And what I do is they piece together and they put the puzzle together, now they create a picture. And so it's just a very common thing I would see in them just trying to create and dialogue with you. And so you just have to have an awareness, what business do I have talking with this person? I remember once we went to a lunch with a country, I won't say what country, a friendly country. And they were like, oh, we want to take you to lunch. And I did not want to go. But my colleague, I didn't get a chance to speak to him. And he's just like, let's go. And I want to be like, no, dude, this is not good. We go, and we go to this restaurant, and they're like, oh, we have a private room for you all. And they put us in a private room, which I knew in New York City, I'm like, this thing is bugged. New York City, my city. I'm like, this thing is bugged. And we're sitting there, we're having lunch, all this food. At one point, they end up leaving, and I grab my partner literally by the collar, nice guy. I'm like, you realize what they're doing, right? He's like, what? He's like, oh. I was like, okay. So just have that awareness. It's in the small things that you can see that.
You guys are living in movie land.
It's reality.
You choose which one you put to speak.
You want me to choose? Back, I don't want you to be overlooked because you're in the back row. Go ahead, sir.
My question is dealing with sensible and high valuable informations. So, which is the limit of the information exchanges between two countries, probably also partner countries, and how is designed this limit? Thank you.
Summarize the question.
Yeah.
Did you understand? Because I didn't understand. Summarize it to everyone.
To summarize the question, if I'm understanding the question is, what is the limit when two countries are sharing information, how do you know when it's too sensitive to share, and how do you know when it's okay to share, even if they're close countries? Am I summarizing correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. So every one of your countries has a limit that they use to classify information. Maybe it's secret, maybe it's confidential, maybe it's sensitive. It's in whatever your host language is. I'm speaking English, obviously. Those sensitivities have to do with how much damage could be done to your country if that information fell into the wrong hands. So when you see those classification markings, understand that's what they have to do with. Something that's a low-level sensitive topic versus something that is a top secret topic means that a sensitive topic would do little damage, but a top secret would do grave damage, significant damage. So you want to understand the classifications themselves. If there are no classifications, if it's all just sensitive information, it's a perfect question to ask the person who is tasking you with the information exchange. What's enough? What's not enough? If they're giving you information and then saying that you're supposed to, share it at your discretion, that's a very confusing place to be. But information is power. Soft power, like Evy was talking about, soft power is found in information oftentimes. Hard power, not so much. So when you're choosing what information you want to share, recognize that every piece of information you share is supposed to net you a return that is better, higher than the information you're giving. As long as you're always trying to get more in return than what you're giving, then you're creating this exchange of value. And that's beneficial to you. It's also beneficial to the partner country. Those countries that are closer, the closer your alliance is, the lesser amount the value has to be. The United States cooperates in something called the Five Eyes Agreement with countries like the UK, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. We share with these countries in order to get just a little bit back from those countries. But we don't have a Five Eyes Agreement with Germany, France, Spain, Italy. So when we give information to those countries, we expect asymmetrical information back. And that information doesn't necessarily always mean I tell you a secret, you tell me a secret. Sometimes that information is I tell you a secret, and then you let me take you to lunch. And then at lunch, I bug your phone. I tap the conversation, something along those lines. So when someone's telling you information, you can trust that they expect more than what they're giving. And when you give someone information, you must always expect more than what you are sharing as well. Does that answer your question?
Of course.
Go ahead, Evy.
Hello, thank you. My name is Enrico, and I'm from Bulgaria. And I actually have a question for Evy. So, generally, life is tough. The problems are coming along the way unexpectedly. So when you're working hard towards something to achieve, something meaningful in life, not just being busy and jogging at a place, as we discussed, my question is how to navigate in life when you're in between success and failure, and something really harsh and difficult comes along the way. Where to find this strength to navigate and keep aligned with your goals? It cannot be only fate, right?
I think kind of what you're leaning into is resilience. And so I'll tell you this. A lot of people spend a lot of their time trying to control everything around them. If I control everything around me, I'll have less problems, less stress, less issues, right? That's fair. I kind of look at them as variables. I try to control the variables around me. So right now, let's say if I was securing this room, I'll give you an analogy, and the President of the United States was going to come to this room, and if I have multiple exits and entry points, I want to control the variables. So I'm going to say one way in, one way out for the public. That's it. I'm going to shut every other entrance down. I'm trying to control a variable. I'm trying to minimize all the things that I need to worry about. That's controlling variables. That's a good thing. Where it becomes a problem is where I'm trying to control everything too hard, and then when things fall apart, I don't know what's going on. A true resilient person is a steady person. I want to be around people, and I always look, I'm like, who's steady when everything around them is falling apart? I don't care about the person when everything is nice and calm. I want to say who the person is when there's chaos around you, and how do you carry yourself during that chaos? That's that steady person. And if you look at resilience, because you talked about failure, this is resilience, the true meaning of resilience. A lot of people can confuse endurance with resilience. Endurance is, I go through something hard. I went through something hard, an illness, suffered a divorce, a loss of a job, whatever, right? I go through something hard. I endure, that's endurance. I endured something. How I come out on the other end, that's a different animal. Just because I go through something hard, it doesn't mean I come out well on the other side. There's plenty of people that go through things and that's it. Complete falling off the cliff. Resilience is, I go through something hard, I endure. However, did I recover? Did I recover? It's your ability to recover and go back to functioning in your pre-stressor state. It doesn't mean you forget, doesn't mean you spend all this time trying to heal or make it go away. It means it happened, but can I go back to functioning, going back to work and functioning and doing my job and delivering and being of service? That's resilience. And if you want to know how you get better at that, you measure how long it takes you each time to recover. You got to think of it like your bounce back rate. How quickly do you bounce back? The faster you bounce back from adversity or problems, the higher your resilience level. So how do you increase that resilience level? By dealing with more problems and adversity. So that when things happen to you, you're not like, oh my God, this has happened to you. That person I don't want to be around. I don't want to be around that person. I want to be around that person like, this is happening. Where's my solution? You know, it's interesting. I brought up 9/11 earlier, September 11th, and I remember on that day, when people coming out of the towers, one of the things we were trying to figure out is who needs true medical help and who's just, you know, in shock and okay, and just we need to move them out of the area. And when people would come out, the uninjured people, they'd come out, and I remember talking to them, and one of the things, my goals was, I need to get them out of here. They're a liability. They're going to get hurt. We need to clear the area. And you would talk to them, and the Hudson River was right where the towers are, Battery Park City. I remember I'd say, okay, go to the Hudson River, go to the Hudson River. And I would see people kind of like glitch. They would just keep standing there. And I'm like, they couldn't understand what the Hudson River was. So to expedite what I was trying to do, and I wasn't the only one, other agents did it, I saw, I'm like, their computer is not working. They're so overstimulated, they're not able to function. They're not moving. And sometimes people weren't even injured. And I would think from their behavior they were injured. I would check them physically, and I'm like, this person's fine. They're just not comprehending. So I would literally take them, turn them, and I was like, you see the water? And they would just be like, walk to the water. That's the max that they understood. So my question is, what's the difference between the person who's going through this plight, although this is an extreme scenario I'm giving you, who's able to function and see through stuff? Forget about someone like me or an Andy who's got training and all that. But there were average people that were able to function and think and hear and process, and then you have a population of people where nothing. Nothing. All they could understand is I physically had to turn them to show them the water. Just walk. Just go to the water, right? And so you can determine over time, like, which way you're going to fall.
Two ladies. One lady here and one lady there.
Firstly, I would like to mention I'm not yet developed, 5 years to go. As I came with my colleague from Netherlands, he discussed about Balochistan a little, and I'm really grateful that you guys are organizing this event, this workshop. From my background in Balochistan, I am curious how intelligence systems can adapt to different social and cultural contexts, as we're speaking about intelligence security today. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to answer it very quickly because I think it's such an informed question. To consider culture when you consider the social norms of that culture when you leverage intelligence skills. One of the most important skills is something called social capital. For those of you who have learned from me in the past, you may have heard this before. For those of you who have not, social capital is currency that comes from social relationships. The more value you add to a social relationship, the more social currency you are collecting. So very similar to what Evy was talking about, or Evy was talking about with you talk a lot, you spend dollars, you talk very rarely, you spend hundreds of dollars. Social capital is similar. If I do a small favor for you, I get a small amount of social capital. If I do a large favor for you, I get a large amount of social capital. But who determines the value of the capital itself? Not me, but the culture that I'm working in. So if I say a compliment to an American lady, that might be worth a lot. But if I say a compliment to a French lady, it might not be worth very much. If I say a compliment to a Muslim woman, she might be offended. I might spend social capital instead of gain social capital. So when you apply these skills, you always have to apply it through the lens of your target culture. You have to, again, like Evy said, you have to meet the target where they are. Do not expect people to understand you through any other lens except for their social norms and their cultural norms. So everything that we've talked about today and all the skills that you use when you try to collect information, negotiate, persuade, build social capital, you must do it through a lens of how the other person already thinks about those topics. Because I promise you, they are not thinking about where you're coming from. The vast majority of people live in a world where they are the center of the world. If you can take a moment to recognize that that person is coming from their own self-centric point of view, you already have a massive advantage in gaining leverage, position, and influence over them.
What Andy is saying is correct. It's like, look, people are investment. I know we're kind of like, be careful of everybody, but at the same time, you know, have relations with people, just have awareness. But it's a little bit of reciprocity, but I don't even like that word. It's like you can do something for someone and then you don't know. I remember I was holding, we call it post. There was a foreign country visiting New York, and I'm at the door. Anytime we did protection, even if it was for a foreign country, I would always hold the door. When I say hold the door, it's the protectee, the president or prime minister's in the room of whatever country, I would be on the door. And typically, there would be a member from their security on the door. So this one country, I guess they had such high trust in us, he said to me, he's like, Evy, are you gonna be on this door? I said, yes. The whole time? I said, yes. Protecting our person? I said, yes. He's like, you're not leaving? I said, no. He's like, that's great. He's like, do you mind? I want to go get some souvenirs for my family and friends back home since you've got the door. So I already had high level of trust with this person because we were preparing the security and workout. I kid you not, he leaves me in charge of his president, prime minister of his country, and his team was like in their command post somewhere. So I do this favor, I do my job, it's fine. You know, I'm not doing anything nefarious. He comes back, he's got his bags. He's like, oh, that was great, thank you so much. Now, I wasn't expecting anything. I also just did my job. I'm not going to leave the door. Later on, I needed something. There was a schedule change, and I could hear my supervisors going like, oh, this is a problem, this and that. So I was like, I did a little bit of that, you know, investment for him, and I pulled him aside, hey, I need a favor. I need you to change the schedule here for this movement. It's causing a problem here. Evy, I got you, no problem. He changed it for me, right? Now, I wasn't expecting anything in return, but when you do things, make them calculated. Don't always do things expecting something. However, when people do you favors, all of us, even something as simple as holding a door, we don't like to owe, intuitively, we don't like to owe people anything. We always want to quick to give back. And it's as simple as somebody holds the door for you. You ever go through double doors? Somebody holds the door for you and they let you in, and what do you immediately do? You go to grab the door for them, like, oh no, please. So you can think of that in relation and interactions with people, and that can kind of help guide you as far as, you know, what you're revealing, be careful, but also what you're inviting as well, and creating relationships of trust, even with entities that you think they shouldn't trust you, but you'd be surprised. Thank you.
Dun, dun, dun.
I've got actually two questions, one to both of you. You two being so concerned about the future of Europe, why do you care to move over here? The first one, and the second question is
What a great question.
And the second question is sort of a follow-up question to the question from the guy here. Being from Germany myself, and for us, whenever we do have a terrorist attack or a terrorist attack try, we get the information from you. So what would likely be the questions you asked us afterwards? How many lunches or what was discussed over lunch after that?
So I want to address the first question first because I am pursuing citizenship in a foreign country. I don't know which country yet, but there are several countries in Europe that are on my list. Germany is not one of them. But here's what I will say. It is a matter of principle, and I believe that the principle is still alive in the European Union. The principle of democracy, the principle of progress, the principle of pursuit because it is the right thing to do. I believe that that principle is powerful and that principle still exists here. I just don't know if it will stay here. So if I gain EU citizenship, if I become a member of a nation of the European Union, I will still maintain my American citizenship because I, unlike you, will have an option in case Europe falls apart. And I can always go back home. And if the United States falls apart, I can also move forward to Europe. And I can always pursue a third citizenship in Latin America, in Africa, in the Middle East if I want to, right? So I'm creating options for myself. I'm creating options for my family. And I believe that of all the options in the world, Europe is the option that aligns the most with the principles that my wife and I believe in, that we pursued when we joined CIA, that we believe in as Americans. And that the gap between values between the United States and Europe are very small, traditionally, but we see those values changing. So that's why we want to come here. As to your second question, I know that you get most of your information from the United States. That's one of the things the United States uses to continue to maintain power over Europe. We have dominant, superior intelligence, therefore you don't need to invest in it, just come to us. We use that information as ways to create opportunities to collect more information. So every time one of our officers goes to one of your offices to report a potential intelligence threat against the Germans, we know that we're going to get an audience with 3 or 4 Germans. We know that we're going to get access to a computer system. We know that we're going to be able to have a conversation. We know that we're going to be able to possibly lure somebody to lunch, dinner, or to a round table. We know that we'll have an opportunity to advance a relationship. And that's what we call an entry point, a threat vector against a partner, even if they're an ally, a partner nation. So you might be asked to lunch immediately. Maybe after the terrorist threat is avoided, then we go out to a celebratory lunch. It also lets us see who's able to go to lunch and who's not able to go to lunch. Because somebody who's allowed to go to lunch is probably less important than the person who's prevented from going to lunch. And that's why we start to bring food to you the next week. Let's just eat in your office and I'll bring you a sandwich instead, right? It's all part of a cultivation of information, a cultivation of relationship.
So interesting.
So why am I here? My career was in law enforcement, and especially when I did interviews, you see the worst of humanity. I mean, the worst. Like when I did interviews, interrogations, and I would help local police departments with theirs, I would interview violent felons, murderers, rapists, fraud, schemes. Probably the worst was crimes against children. I did a lot of crimes against children, physical and sexual abuse. And so every day when you see that, you have to be careful because you can become cynical because you're thinking, well, the whole world's like that. Because if that's all you see all day long and that's what my job was, and you start to think, what? Everybody's this way. And I know everybody's not this way. And I think the majority of the people in the world, it's like we have both good and bad. Most of us, not all, most of us try to keep the good. We try to balance, right? We do this and all day long. It's I want the good to shine, I want the good to shine. And sometimes what? The bad trumps it. You may not see it as bad. There's no person I interviewed ever that said I'm a bad person. Everybody who ever committed any crime always gave me a good justification. I know I did this, but let me explain to you why I did this. You can sell anything to yourself. We're great sellers. I can do something and sell it to myself that it's okay that I did this because it's in my own self-interest, or whatever the case may be, despite the fact that I may have caused harm to another being. I'm a seller. Now, having said that, I also believe in the good of humanity. And I believe in the ethos of the EU and what you're trying to do. And I also believe, even still, although I'm not in government technically, I still believe in being of service. So whatever I can do to share within the reason of what I can and cannot say due to my background, to share to help make you better and more efficient and to be a guest in your home. At the same time, I am of Greek descent, which is in the EU, the European Union. And so from that perspective as well, I understand and I look at the EU somewhat a little bit more closely because of my heritage and understanding. And I actually remember I studied overseas when I was in college. I did a program where I studied the EU as they were putting it together. Before this building was even here, we did a drive-by and it was nothing but like a couple of flags at the time. And I remember the currency was being discussed and all that. So I was around for the evolution. So I studied international affairs and politics. And I remember when they were creating it and why, and I understood the belief system, and I believe in it. I believe that you're all here to try to do good. And if we're all collectively just trying to do good, it does influence the world. In small ways, we can make it better without living in fantasy land and forgetting that there are issues out there, but at the same time, giving to humanity. So that's that. And forgive me, what was the second part of the question?
Yes, when United States uses favors for espionage, how they take back stuff?
They're just gonna be around you. They're gonna ask you questions. Look, there's nothing wrong with it to a degree. I always said, and then somebody asked a question, how much should I give away or what should I say? I always kind of go through this barometer. If what you do or say ends up on the 6 o'clock news and you would be embarrassed, don't say it. That's it. Because I do the news now. So if you don't want somebody like me going, hey, this politician from this country went to lunch with this other country and guess what they said? If you don't want that on air, that's a good barometer for probably shouldn't do this or probably shouldn't say this.
I will let each one of you guys go for 2 minutes to share whatever you want to share, close remarks, and starting with you.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here. I want you to take a look around the room and see how many people left because they either had to leave.
No. This is a huge phenomenon in the European Parliament because they have so many committees, everyone, so they need to go, they have meetings with others, so it's very usual for them.
What a very diplomatic and bureaucratic answer. Some people left because they were bored. Some of you were bored at some point too. That's totally okay with me. I hope that there were a few of you that had an aha moment, that had a revelation, that found yourself nodding along with what I was saying, with what Evy was saying, a realization of the truth that you did not have before you walked in the room. If that happened to just one person, it was worth it. I had a CIA leader who called me into a room one day, and he said that he had one expectation of me, just one expectation, every day. And he said that expectation was that every day you will help one person succeed at one task. That's it. If you do that every day, help one person succeed at one thing every day, then you are making a greater contribution than you can imagine. Because that person will be able to contribute to more people in their day, and those people will be able to contribute to more people in their day, and you're solving problems and you're moving the ball forward. You're helping to accomplish a greater goal. So if I helped just one of you, all the time, all the hours on the airplane was worth it. All the time figuring out my sleep deprivation and my jet lag was worth it. Everything is worth it if I helped one of you do one thing, have one moment of inspiration or one moment of encouragement. It was worth it, and that's all I have to say.
I'll just leave you with this. Just whatever it is you're doing, find meaning in it. Just find meaning in what you're doing. I've had two moments in my life where I had in the job I did, it was very understood. It was a very life and death situation, especially when you did protection. Every time you put your vest on, unlike other agencies, we weren't trained to hide. You were trained like if a bullet comes, you jump in front. And then not only that, make yourself big to make sure it hits you and doesn't miss. And so you always had that awareness. But I had 2 moments in my life that were true, I'm gonna die. The first moment was actually on 9/11. And I remember being there. I took cover. I couldn't go anywhere. The tower was coming down. I remember hunkering down. And the tower, at first when the tower was coming down, the first tower, I thought, maybe the roof is sliding off. I didn't understand. I actually didn't even know at that point that planes had hit. I didn't understand what was happening. But I remember I was like, all right, the roof is sliding off, but it's right over my head. I'm right here, and I can't outrun this, so I'm just gonna hunker down. I hunkered down, and then as it started to come down, I heard the bending steel, and it started to come down on me. I remember thinking, I'm gonna die. I'm not living through this. And I was like, all right, I don't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. And there are 2 very profound things that happened in that moment. One was, I was like, all right, if I live, and I remember sitting there, you talk about people have moments that flash before their life. I just remember thinking, I don't know if I lived. Was I a good person? Did I do the right thing? Did I leave something good in the world? I thought about my family. I didn't think about the cool new Secret Service job I had. I didn't think about the brand new car because it was the first time in my life I could afford a brand new car. I didn't think about my paycheck. I didn't think about my money. I thought about leaving this world and what I had done. And I remember telling myself, I was like, if I live, I will do better. I will live. I will be a good human being. I will be of service. You know, and then at the same time, you know, there was also a choice to be made. Now, I didn't have a choice as to whether I would die or not. I was like, I don't have this choice. And I learned the power of like relinquishing and being like, I can't control everything. So I was like, I have no choice whether I die or not. And I was fairly certain, I was like, I'm not gonna live through this. I was like, but I have a choice how I will die. How I will die. And I was like, I'm not gonna die afraid. I remember as everything just started to collapse around me, I was like, I'm gonna keep my eyes open. I was like, I wanna see death come for me. I will not die in fear. If it's the only thing I have ownership over, I have that. And then at the same time, there's a sadness that came over me, ironically. And I was sad. I was like, oh, I'm gonna die alone. This is what I thought of. I was like, I'm gonna die alone. Because I happened to be alone at that point. I was like, they're not gonna find my body. It's gonna be completely buried under the rubble. I will be alone when I die. And it made me sad. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? I have a choice. I'm not gonna die alone. And being my background, I began to pray. And I was like, I'm not gonna die alone. I'm gonna pray and I'm gonna ask for someone to be with me here as I go from this world to the next. And that moment, although maybe some think it's tragic, that's guided me every single day for the rest of my life. Find meaning in what you do. What are you gonna leave behind? This is temporary, all of us. We're here temporarily. So while you are here in the pursuit of yourself and your self-interest and your identity and your success and what you're gonna do, I promise you, when it is your time, you will not care. What are you doing to make life meaningful for you? And what are you leaving behind? And I hope, you know, through us being here and sharing with you, that will help you on your journey to truly make life meaningful, not just for yourself, but for others. And thank you for the honor for having us here. Thank you. Good work.
I love you all. This was the end of the session. Thank you guys for making it here. Thank you guys for being here, and see you in the future in the internet when you see us again. Bye-bye.